We have no idea at this point if Donald Trump is going to face any legal consequences in terms of jail time for the many charges that he's facing. There's a lot of different outs that he has. He could become president and pardon himself. Some of the jurors, could be big pro-Trump people and they could go his way. He could be innocent, I suppose. But what if there was one other way that he could be saved? What if he doesn't have to pardon himself? What if Joe Biden just does it for him? I was, I think, quite a bit persuaded by something I read in the Washington Post. If you take a look at this, arguing that that's what should happen. Biden should pardon Trump. Really? And it's a good point that you're making when you have to put the really afterward. But no, they're making the case. It's not just Geraldo anymore. Now it's in the pages of the Washington Post op-ed section. And the entire thing's amazing. You should read the entire thing, but we're gonna give you a little sampling of some of the arguments that are made. Because remember, they're trying to convince Democrats to be okay with this, the idea of Biden saving Donald Trump. So it starts with, in his 2020 victory speech, Joe Biden declared that, quote, "To everything there is a season, a time to build, a time to reap, a time to sow, and a time to heal. This is the time to heal in America." And they go on to say, if he wants to deliver on his promise to heal the country, he could do so with one action: pardon Donald Trump. That's the action that will bring us all together and heal the great divides that we're experiencing. They say the threshold for the sitting president's administration to indict the leading candidate of the opposing party should be extraordinarily high. High enough to mitigate the suspicion held by 80% of Republicans and almost half the nation, per ABC News Ipsos polling, that these charges are politically motivated. Indeed, millions of Americans believe that our legal system is being weaponized against Trump and, by extension, against them. Millions will see Trump's prosecution as illegitimate and any conviction as unjust. That will further erode public confidence in our judicial system and the principle of equal justice under law. There are a couple of other points we make that we will get to, but why don't we start with that? The idea that you have to pardon him because if you convict him, his base will think that that's unfair, when the reason that they'll think it's unfair is because Trump and Republicans keep telling them that it's unfair. It's not like they went to the library and read a bunch of books and came to that conclusion. They have been sold for years that there should be no consequences for literally anything. Pardoning him would take away the consequences, so they would seem to be right at that point. So do you find that to be persuasive, that because so many people will never accept that this is legitimate, no matter what comes out, what evidence, he could be on tape, doesn't matter, that Biden should pardon him?
Yeah, that's why I thought OJ should have been pardoned too. I mean, a lot of people didn't accept that verdict, but obviously it was true. Well, in that case, they didn't have to pardon him, but I'm sure that these same people would have made the argument had he been convicted. A lot of people don't think he was guilty, so they should be pardoned. No, of course, it's an absurd standard. I'm gonna come back to it. So, look, when he says it's a time to heal, I think what he means is HEEL. Right. So don't get him wrong. He's saying that Biden shouldn't pardon him in his next term if it gets to that point as a way of healing the country after the election. He's saying Biden should pardon him now. No, hard pass. So it doesn't. The reason that the right wing is going to this is because there's no defense of Donald Trump. They've now tried it all over television and it's getting humiliating. And they go to the double standard first, like, oh yeah, what about Hillary Clinton and James and then Joe Biden, the Corvette and Mike Pence and stuff. He had a couple papers and stuff. Yeah, what about that? They go to that because they can't defend Donald Trump. He definitely did it. He's on tape admitting he did it. His excuses are, I laser-eyed it. If I just hear the papers rustling, it's declassified. None of these things are remotely true. When you go to court, you can't possibly say that because you get laughed out of court and into prison, right? So they got nothing left. So they're like, well, the Democrats are super weak and their leaders are super dumb. Maybe if we just tell the Biden, hey, the really classy bipartisan thing to do, Joe, would be to pardon him. And I don't think that that's a crazy strategy. I mean, I would be, look, is Joe Biden going to pardon him now? No, I don't believe that even Joe Biden is that mental about bipartisanship, right? But if he wins another term, which again is a fantastical idea, I don't think he has any chance of winning another term. But if he did, would he consider pardoning Trump then? If you think he wouldn't, you don't know Joe Biden at all. Joe Biden can't wait to pardon Trump. But doing it before the election is even beyond his weakness. I don't even think he could heal that much. I'm gonna come back to the 80% of Republicans in a second, but first, Ramesh.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been watching your coverage, and you all discussed in great detail how Biden sold out in a way any sort of real progressive values or the progressive base with the debt ceiling discussion, right? So, here's someone who is willing to sort of capitulate before actually holding any ground or necessarily having any leverage on, for the most part during this administration. So in a sense, it wouldn't be surprising in that sense. But it also allows me the opportunity to ask a question that I don't see discussed very often in relation to this Trump indictment, which is, in this country, a felon can be elected president, but a felon can't vote, which is really interesting if you juxtapose those two together. I think only in 2 states can a felon vote. There's some period of time after the conviction that there's some period by which they could not vote. So I think it's interesting because I think what has not occurred has been a clear differentiation about how and in what ways Trump has abused his own corruption relative to the corruption of the leading Democrats, right? So that's why, I've been watching a lot of coverage of Trump supporters saying, well, this is a double standard because Hillary and Biden and Hunter Biden are also corrupt in various ways. But the ways, this is a markedly different and a markedly escalated form of corruption that Trump has engaged in here. And I don't think that's been sufficiently explained, certainly not to the wider American public. But I also think it's very telling because if Trump is able to get away with all of this, and I would say that's entirely possible in a lot of different ways, including being convicted and pardoning himself, he will be able to basically double down or triple down on what he's already showed and been very clear about in these couple revealing moments in his own political history, where he gets on the stage with all the other Republicans and says, I bought you out, I bought you out, I bought you out, and I bought Democrats out. That's what I do. I buy people out because the entire system is corrupt, as you've talked about a lot, Cenk, over the years. Or even this kind of, I can kill someone on Fifth Avenue, whatever that comment was, right? So I think so what needs to be done is a precedent that shows justice actually matters and shows how this is a violation of justice. And in the other cases, it's not as egregious or it's markedly different. And I think if that doesn't occur, it's going to have the disastrous effect and that's likely to occur, that the Washington Post, op-ed, which I thought was over the top, is describing. But but the key is the discussion around how Trump is particularly egregious because it's all personal for him. It's all narcissistic, and he doesn't give a damn about the law at all. It's just all about him.
Look, let's go back to the 80% of Republicans who say that they think this is unfair. One solution to that is to call a wambulance. So just because you're wrong doesn't mean we should appease you. If 80% of Republicans thought that 2 + 2 = 5, which at this point there's an excellent chance they do, does that mean we change it to 5? No, it's still 4. I mean, what if 80% of Republicans said the Unabomber should have been like, I know he committed suicide recently, but by the way, lately he had actually been gaining a followership among the right wing before he committed suicide, because those are the times we live in. What if 80% of them were like, the Unabomber should be let go? Are we supposed to let him go? What if they said Khalid Sheikh Mohammed should be let go? It's okay, 80% of them said it. Who cares what they said? That's not a thing we do in America where we run a poll and we're like, okay, but what do Republican voters think about this criminal? That's not a part of the judicial process. And besides which, what would happen if you did that? You know what would happen? They would immediately go, we knew it, we were right. See, even Biden had to let him go because it was a witch hunt. Thank you, Biden, for finally admitting that you're a crook and a criminal and a witch hunter. 100% of that 80% will say that. Okay, so how would that do any healing? That wouldn't do any healing at all. And yes, obviously the point that John and Ramesh are making is the most important one. It would also be a giant green light, a blinking green light, even though that such a thing doesn't exist, saying break the law. Especially if you're a Republican, And members are writing in now. I love doing the show with members. Here, I'll read you one real quick. Navinik says, if the roles were reversed, do you think a Republican president pardons a Democratic former president? You have your answer. Of course a Republican wouldn't even consider it. Like imagine Trump gets in, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna pardon Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, assuming that they came, whatever, right? Assuming that they came up with evidence they don't have on Joe Biden at least. And so, no, they would never do that. They would never even contemplate it. But notice that the Washington Post chose to run this op-ed because they think, no, the Democrats would contemplate it. You just have to suggest it. And the Democratic leadership is so pathetically weak that they would think about breaking the rules to help their opponents.
Yeah. Well, look, both of you seem to not be buying this yet, and so I apologize. I'm supposed to be giving it its best chance to convince you. There's just a few more quick arguments. Let's see if this wins over either of you. A Trump trial would be one of the most divisive events in the history of our republic. It would set a new precedent and create enormous pressure on the next Republican president to go after President Biden, his family, and other Democrats. I'll pause for a second to say, and that would be flipping the script. They haven't been willing to investigate Biden up until this point. There was nothing on Hillary Clinton, nothing on Bill Clinton, nothing like that. This would change everything. And to remedy what harm? Despite Trump's best efforts to obstruct them, federal agents recovered the documents they unlawfully possessed. And there's nothing in the indictment to indicate evidence that the intelligence in Trump's possession was obtained by foreign governments or intelligence services. That last bit is true. Before that is not. There are still documents. The document that he showed off at the New Jersey Club or whatever, they don't have that yet. There are still very likely documents that we don't have. Anyway, he closes by saying, in pardoning Trump, Biden would be a true statesman. Sparing the country the ordeal of a trial would go a long way towards repairing the nation's frayed political fabric. He would display the kind of leadership that has been missing in Washington, and he would drive Trump crazy. Yeah, Trump would hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Trump would hate not going to prison. Oh, that would stick in his craw.
Sure.
But this is maybe even better. With one action, Biden would eliminate the narrative of a deep state conspiracy that is helping to fuel Trump's political comeback. You sort of already hinted at that, but yeah, that would be it. Trump and right-wing media would just be defenseless. There would be nothing they could pivot to make their followers still believe that there's a deep state. It would confirm to the QAnon people that all of it's true. That no matter how close he comes to oblivion, I guess it was all part of a plan because now he's a free man again. Like, come on, this is either the greatest lack of imagination in history, or more likely, it's just wishful thinking. That's all it is.
Well, no, it's trolling Biden, and Biden is a fool, and so it's not inconceivable that he falls for the trolling. I mean, if it runs in the Washington Post, it will definitely get Biden's attention. And his like little bunny ears will go up like, ooh, do I get to make Republicans happy? Oh, that's my favorite thing in the world is making Republicans happy. So it's not inconceivable. I'm gonna go through those quotes real quick. One, he says, this could be the most divisive trial. I have an easy answer. Then tell Trump to plead guilty. Why don't we run that op-ed in the Washington Post? Then we would get rid of the divisiveness. Trump says, yeah, I did it, I'm a criminal. He goes to jail, there's no divisiveness left. He's the one creating the divisiveness. Number two.
No, Jake, write that op-ed and submit it to the Washington Post.
I'm sure they'll carry it.
That's balance.
Right. They'll want that balance right away because I hear that they care a lot about neutrality and balance. That's why they're writing progressive columns and op-eds there all the time. Okay, and then he said, well, if you did this, it would take away the incentive for Republicans to lock up former presidents like Joe Biden, etc. That's just a threat, guys. He's saying if you don't let go of Trump, if we win, we're going to unfairly imprison as many of you as we possibly can. Okay, I'm not moved by that threat. In fact, that makes me want to do the rule of law more. And John is right. Oh, what? You're going to start investigating Biden? Too late. You're 3 years too late. And on Hillary Clinton, remember what they said about her. All the way back in 2016, they chanted, lock her up. Now all of a sudden, you don't want to lock up political opponents? Oh, please. Please, Republicans can't wait to lock up political opponents. And in their case, for absolutely no reason. And the last one was my favorite though. He's like, you know what would make Trump really upset? If you just let him off scot-free. Man, that would really get under his skin. You ought to try it. I mean, this is really an insult to Biden's intelligence, and I'm not sure that they're wrong on that count. Okay, go ahead, Ramesh.
Yeah, I think that when we look at leading elite Democratic politicians, they are often governed by two major values. One is they play scared. They want to avoid whatever is considered most calamitous to them. So that's why we see all this critique, for example, of Brother West running in the People's Party. Though I personally would think it would be great if he ran as a Democrat, so he could face off with Biden if Biden ever wanted to do a debate. And the other value is one of not really having values and being sort of caught in neoliberal corruption, cycles. So if you want to do healing, you really want to do healing, and you want to do healing in relation to Trump supporters, you go to Trump supporters and you talk with them about their grievances and what you're actually going to do to support them, which is really addressing working class, large scale economic issues and jobs and the economy more generally. And the best attack dog on Trump right now is Chris Christie. And I think that's absolutely absurd that the Democratic Party can't step up and actually show how different and how violating Trump is compared to their own elitist transgressions. I watched the Pod Save the whatever it's called, the country interview with HRC last night that made me want to vomit. It was just so snooty and just thumbing the nose down, like, I'm better than all of you. Got to stop the elitism. Get in line with working people, including Trump supporters. Want to do real deep healing. Recognize the racial and other forms of violence that have led to where we're at today. We don't need to be guilty about it. We just need to recognizing history allows us to move on almost a psychic level. So there's a lot of healing that Joe Biden could represent. The question is he actually going to stand up for such healing or not?
Yeah, no, he's not. Okay, I answered it. That was quick. Okay, he's not going to do anything for the rest of his political career. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.